starting. Welcome to episode 20 of the Out of Voice podcast. As always, this is Keem and Esmeralda D. Apollo, and I said the entire name again.
Yes, you did. I was pretty hard. You can't see me.
This is going to be a pretty rough podcast. Esmeralda decided she was going to leave the state, or leave her state. And she's run away to parts unknown.
They're not really that unknown. There's lots of people here, actually.
More, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
With people unknown. Well, okay. Guess we know the person.
No, at least one of these people I know pretty well.
Like medium, I would say.
I think I know you pretty well.
And
like
with that being,
75%.
usually we introduce our guests on these actual topic portion of the podcast. But our guest is actually sitting in for the news this time. And as we stated last week, a special guest, he helped us get this thing kicked off the ground with the reboot. Was gracious enough with the rest of the band to give us a theme and music.
Yep.
So we're welcoming Chris to the show.
Hello.
There should be applause, but we don't have applause, so
Yay!
there we go.
Thank you.
You got one fan.
All right. I can live with that.
But he's joining us today throughout the show. He gets special privilege.
Hear that? You have a special privilege.
Wow. That is not something I'm used to having.
It's kind of special privilege. You see what I did there? Yep. Okay, I'm just goofy today. I just got back in town myself. I actually went to a show in Memphis over the weekend. Well, not over the weekend, yesterday. At the Evergreen Theater, and it was put on by the Emerald Theater Troupe. And they're an LGBTQ theater group. And they put on a show called LGBTQ Damn Funny, and it was, in fact, get this, damn funny.
What? No way.
It was a great show. I laughed just the entire time. Friday, they're doing their last show tonight on Saturday. So use this. They'll be done, but I'll probably provide some information on them. Memphis, Tennessee. They're doing some great shows. Some great actors. One particular, she knows who she ever listens to this. I'm trying to win some brownie points.
Oh.
Yeah. But great founders of that troupe on the show very soon. I'm gonna get in contact with them. I'm already started working on that. So hopefully we're gonna have them on as guests in the near future.
Nice.
But yeah, great show. Great. How things going on your end?
We're doing great up here, and it was very warm today. I spent way too much time in the sun and got a pretty killer sunburn, as is par for the course for me. If I spend more than 10 minutes consecutively out in the sun, I turn very pink. And today,
Which is actually kind of news to me, so that was a fun discussion. Look at you.
If you all have never met Esme, she's what?
Do you call me that though?
Yeah, I mean not to your face.
Your silence was incriminating.
Yeah,
deeply.
Like sunscreen, it's just that rough.
I don't know what that means, but also that sounds gross.
Yeah,
I think I used
okay.
No, and also mayonnaise would be a really terrible sunscreen. It's oil based, and that would just make it so much worse. Really,
You
what it is.
so bad too.
Yeah, really what it is that I just have to use like SPF 70 screen and then reapply every hour on the hour. Otherwise, I turn into a lobster.
All right.
But in any case.
She's burned. I'm driving. And we're going into this.
Yay!
Another great segue, truly.
My news segment is also a great segue into our topic segment, and so you should go first.
I actually think mine's also a good segue into the topic. I will go first.
Did we get the same one?
I hope not. Okay. Give me one that may give it away.
Oregon.
Shit. Okay. You go ahead then.
Why? Did we have to use the same one?
We got the same one.
What?
We got the same one.
All right. So, you want me to go first then?
Yep, this is unprecedented.
So my news topic for this week has to do with Oregon, like I said, which is that Oregon is now officially the first U.S. state to allow a third gender distinction on state IDs. They officially have, you can now choose M, F, or X for an unspecified gender identity. And it's actually very, very interesting. Like California hit the news last week for, they had a bill that would do something similar that passed the state and the House. And of course, many groups are protesting very heavily and trying to get this thing. But Oregon did not even go the legislative route. There was one person got a judicial ruling allowing non-binary gender identity on a state ID. And then now the Oregon Transportation Commission has just decided to go ahead beginning in July. So go Oregon.
Go
Yes.
Oregon.
Woo! Hey. Seems pretty cool.
Yes, I'm excited. I got into one of the reasons that I chose this as my news topic is because I literally just got into a huge argument with people on Facebook last week over the California thing. Where they're like, why do we need a third gender identity? Why can't people just use male or female? And I'm like, well,
How much time you got?
yeah, exactly. Actually, that's not really how that works. And actually, it's a thing. I got into a whole argument about non-binary as a gender distinction to put yourself into and why that's necessary. And it was a whole thing. But it is very nice now to have at least one state. At least one state. It starts with one, and then it will expand, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
At least one state that offers an alternative, right? Like something, an other box. We're on the way there.
Yeah, I mean,
we're getting there.
Hopefully, some
baby
more
steps
states will follow Oregon's example.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And California is not dead yet. It's just being held up and protested because they are going the legislative route, right? They're trying to get it passed as a law. And it's the same thing. It doesn't have anything to do with birth certificates or anything to have people go back and amend that. It's just binary as a gender identity on state IDs. But they're doing the legislative route to where now, like I said, it's passed the state Senate and it's being held up at the next step because so many conservative groups are working against it. But Oregon just the Transportation Commission just went ahead and said, well, right? They had a judicial ruling in favor of allowing it and kind of all right, let's do it. Yes.
Yeah.
I said more states.
That's my topic. Yay!
More states should really follow Oregon's trail.
No, boo!
Oh no, that was pretty great.
Boo!
I'm gonna reinforce how great that was. Positive puns.
Boo! Boo to both of you. No puns.
Sorry, you're outvoted.
Are you saying we're pun acceptable?
I would say we are punable, in fact.
I'm gonna break up with both of you.
No one would blame you for that.
Oh, this podcast is over now.
And then, yeah, that'd be great. We'll be bros.
And
So
let me go ahead and
with you, right?
apologize for any issues that we may have. Like I said, this is a rough today. Like I said, we're all over the place, and we're just trying to get it all together.
Yep.
So, like I said,
And no editing.
Hopefully
You editing magic behind the scenes. But I am out of state without my usual equipment, and so no editing magic this week.
And see, I'm in my state with usual equipment, but my usual equipment sucks. So,
but also, you don't do the editing magic.
Right.
All right. So, what did you come up with in the time while I was presenting my news topic, Keem?
Absolutely nothing. My news topic was stolen by the white person yet again. No, Blanche,
I called it because I picked that out ago, and you picked it out while we were setting up for the podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to find it in favor. You are a white person.
That is true. But also, I did find that first.
Chris,
yes, I know.
Do you have a news story?
But I do not. I did not come prepared.
No.
Like, as I do in all things, I am utterly unprepared. But willing to go with the flow.
Also, you were warned, though.
Yeah. And was still unprepared.
Still failed to
as
prepare.
in all things in my life, yeah.
This is going to be a really, like, roundtable type podcast because we're all just...
All right. Well, if you don't have a news topic, let us use my news topic as our segue into our topic conversation.
So, we're going to just move right along into the topic. Actually, you know what? I do have a
very special episode.
Wait, what?
I do have a segue into topic.
Okay.
My pride joke. Because I was supposed to say my pride joke on last week's show, and I didn't get a chance to say it.
Oh, yeah. Chris hasn't heard this joke yet.
So,
talk to me.
Here's my pride joke. A gay man was walking down the street, and he was approached by this kind of conservative Christian Southerner. And he goes, Southerner goes, "Excuse me, I was wondering, isn't June Pride Month?" The gay guy goes, "Yeah, it's Pride Month." "Well, I gotta ask you, why isn't Pride Month in another month like September, so the young'uns don't have to see all this gayness?" And the gay guy looks at the Southern dude, thinks about it for a second, and then points at the guy's Bible. He goes, "It says right there in that book, pride cometh before the fall."
Okay, that's pretty good.
And into our topic,
I've heard
topic discussion.
Like 4 times and I love it.
Never stops entertaining, yeah.
Yep.
Solid joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope somebody laughed. Somebody listening laughed. But that brings us into our topic section. We don't have any artists for the week. This is just, like I said, it's going to be a real rough kind of podcast, like old school. So we're going straight into our topic session, and I'm gonna let Esme and Chris kind of take the lead on this one again.
That's your cue.
That's my cue? Okay, so what we are talking about with this podcast, I'm going to let you take this one.
That's a bad idea.
So our topic for this podcast is sex and gender. And Chris has promised me that he has a whole rant, it's a whole thing, about sex and gender and how both of these things like are very frequently thought of as binary systems, which is very, very like not actual reality. It's like I'm gonna fuck this all up.
All right. Well, you want me to dive in?
All
right. I'll do like a quick spiel here.
Do the quick spiel.
Yeah. So I don't know. So like, what I'm interested in relation to this topic is that like. So like kind of like gender studies 101, like very like introductory like way of approaching and starting to like think about sex and gender in a progressive fashion tends to come down in the following, right? Where like the story, well, sex is a word that we use to describe biological sex. That's whether you are male or female, right? And then gender is your gender identity. That is the socially conditioned and therefore socially, alterable expression of, you know, some aspects of you that are not necessarily tied to your biological sex, right? And from there, you know, the story progresses like, therefore, those individuals who are transgender are those whose biological sex does not match up to their gender identity and expression, and therefore, you know, so on and so forth, what have you. And so, on the one hand, that's a useful starting place, and that's still, like, in my opinion, like, very far from, I think, how a lot of people still think about sex and gender, which that they are one and the same, and that there are men and there are women, and then
that's it.
and then your genitalia and, you know, chromosome makeup kind of determine all of those things, yes. And then you have particular roles that you play and ought to play socially on the basis of those things, so on and so forth. So, you know, the kind of acknowledgement of the sex-gender distinction, I guess, historically comes about in, like, you know, like, particularly in second wave feminism, post-Beauvoir kind of stuff going on, is really useful and important, and it's beyond, you know, like, I think where a lot of people are at, but it's something that I have a lot of issues with because it still puts, like, it still has a notion of biological sex, which for me is pretty, like, I don't know, makes no sense. And then, but also puts, like, sex, biological, quote unquote, biological sex on the same kind of, like, either you are male or female, that we find, you know, naturally pretty problematic in just discussing gender expression.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the quick spiel.
That's the quick spiel. Now,
thoughts, questions, concerns?
Keep going. I'm learning.
Yeah, you are learning. You're kind of digging in to this. All right. So, so you kind of lose me because you've done a lot of thinking on this when you start talking about, like, I'm still kind of stuck in the mindset, I will fully admit, of like sex being at least, like, based in biology, right? Like,
so, okay, we'll continue. Finish that thought.
Right, where, like, as problematic as it is to think of sex as like a binary, right? Where, like, male bodies and female bodies, like, right. we know, people that are listening to this podcast know that, like, intersex bodies are a thing, and there's variation in terms of, like, chromosomal, like, distinction. There's variation in terms of, like, genitalia, but that still seems to me like something that is, like, I have trouble figuring out how to take that out of, like, there is like biology, right? Like, there is biological sex.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, that's a really good place to start, like, talking about this. So, like, obviously, just disclaimer here, like, I, you know, cannot speak for anyone except for, like, myself and my interpretation of, like, this stuff. And of course, like, this is stuff that I've, like, read up on a fair bit and, like, done and researched and presented occasionally, like, my research on this topic, but, like, I am not an expert and should not be taken as such. So that's there. And I fully acknowledge that. I mean, completely off base here, but this is these are my, which are themselves relatively inchoate and evolving. So see what happens.
Yes.
You mentioned intersex, and that's apropos because, like, that's sort of the cornerstone of my interest in this aspect of human, I don't know, sexuality studies, right? So intersex being an umbrella term for, like, a number of different conditions that typically are diagnosed at birth that lead to typically some kind of mismatch between the genital configuration of a child or infant and their chromosomal makeup or other, you know, typical indicators of sex, of their bodily sex, right? Yes. Like male or female, right? Yes. So my interest in it in particular is in terms of the what I think absolutely heinous, like, and heinously immoral, like, acts, you know, perpetrated against children in the name of, like, maintaining the male strict sexuality distinction, such that, you know, like, people, doctors do, like, sex assignment surgeries in order to determine their sex, so that they don't, you know, fit cleanly into either box. Yeah, that's super problematic and messed up.
Yes, that is totally messed up.
Yeah. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So like, you know, my like research interest in intersex in that context kind of prompts a lot of thought about the limitations of how we think about sexuality in terms as biological as bodily, right?
Yes.
As strictly either male or female. And my kind of take on it is that the fact that it is possible to, like, there are such cases such that literally test the male-female distinction, right, that are like naturally occurring, right, and shows that the sex differentiation between men and women is not natural itself, right, because there are like divergences from that that occur naturally, and that the second that the sex differentiation between man and woman on the basis of bodily, you know, purported bodily differences in terms of genitalia, secondary sex characteristics, and chromosomes is itself really confused because those three things don't always line up.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the constructed. You know, that is a category those are two categories that are constructed, right, that are not non-natural inherently, because they don't, those three things don't always like work with one another, and therefore that sex is something like that is interpreted, right? It's the result of interpretation. Right? It's in cases such as children born with intersex conditions. It's a child, or it's a doctor making literally an interpretive choice as to whether or not like the child is going to be put into either camp or into either box. So what's going on there? It is like is that like sex is biological in some sense, but the way that we think of how biology works in that context is always already informed by the social conditions around us, right? Whereas like someone who believes in the male-female distinction would say that it is purely from nature that we receive that.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that rambly enough? I feel like that was
totally
rambly.
That was exactly the amount of rambly that we expect from this podcast.
Okay, good, because that's about my limit.
That's not true. I've seen you way more rambly.
Yeah, but I'm usually drinking more beers at that point. So,
yes.
Yeah.
What's up, Keem?
Oh, I'm just trying to process all of that.
Yeah, just let me throw everything up against the wall, and then we'll go from there, I guess. Is that the plan? I don't know.
That's sort of what you've done.
Well, yeah, I guess we're locked in now.
So,
yes,
what you were basically saying was, we think of sex and say it's the biological component. I'm trying to lay it down for like a layman, because there's a lot to take in. Sex as we think of sex as a biological component, but even our classification of that is always based on societal factors.
Yeah. So the idea that the quickest version I can think of is that like the idea that man and woman as biological characteristics is a natural distinction is false. It's not natural, right? It's not nature doesn't provide us with men and women. We provide us with the categories of men and women by interpreting what nature gives us.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. Gender we would have as like the social construct, and sex would more likely be a social interpretation.
I mean, I don't have a strong commitment to like what to do with these like thoughts in terms of like how what the best way to think of sex is. I think the most crucial thing is that like for I don't know, those who are already like relatively hip to kind of like what's going on in gender studies, right? Who are down with the like, you know, the biological sex versus gender identity distinction.
Yeah.
And are looking for the next step. Like if you've already accepted the idea that like gender identity comes as a spectrum of different modes of expression, right? And that is socially constructed and, you know, I mean, linguistically constructed depending on what theorist you're reading, whatever. I think that at the very least, the next kind of place to go from there is that, like, yeah, this notion of biological sex itself, like, is at least similar in that respect, right? Like, there is not just a clean division there. It is not a natural division. It is like something that exists on a spectrum, and it's something that is also constructed. And then you can start getting into really kind of trying to tear apart both of these concepts, which is kind of where I want to go with it. But, you know, like, that is way out there.
Yeah, and then we start questioning, like, the nature of reality itself, and then we all have, like, a crisis and end up, like, sobbing in a corner somewhere.
Which is pretty much what I call Tuesday. So, yeah, like, it sounds like pretty normal.
Who knew we were getting into existential crises in Pride Month?
Have you met any of us?
I'd be worried if I wasn't.
I know, right?
Yeah.
This is like your natural state. So, as you were talking and rambling about like how like biological sex is a totally a concept that we've like now overlaid over these natural phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Like I started thinking about like how pervasive that sort of thinking is, though, right? Like, we don't just classify human beings as male and female. We classify everything in the world.
Yes.
Right. Like, every living being is male or female.
And I mean, depending what language you choose.
Yeah.
Like, you speak, like, every noun is either male or female, right?
In fact, in a lot, like, most Western languages, right?
Yes.
That happens.
Yeah.
Right? Many of these languages. And how pervasive, like, how just, like, pervasive that is. And, like, it gets me thinking, like, whether... I mean, this obviously, like, is a useful category when you're studying, like, zoology and stuff, right? Like, when you're dealing with I don't know. It's.
I can't speak for the zoologists, dude. I don't know.
It's interesting though, like, which like brings to, like, bringing this up in the context of human beings. Like, naturally, I start thinking about, like, how intertwined these concepts of, like, sex and gender are, right? We have this as, like, completely interpretive, like, way of assigning like biological sex as male or female, and then sort of taking anything that falls outside of those two categories and, like, figuring out how to move it into one of those two categories.
Right.
And how that is completely intertwined with, like, these social categories of male, like, men and women, and what like factors that has, or what societal factors that has to do, right? Like, with traditional roles in various societies. And so that is one part of it. But then when you start thinking about, like, the categories, like, biological, quote unquote, biological categories of male and female with regards to other things, like, that starts getting into, like, whether or not those categories were, I mean, obviously probably they were, created to be a useful way of talking about, like reproductive capacity.
Sure.
Of different, like, I mean, that's one of the main ways that it's used, right?
Yeah, and, like, no doubt, right? Like, you know, this serves the descriptive, like, scientific purpose, right?
Yes.
Of, you know, like, how can we categorize? And, you know, like, probably it's not super, like, problematic to be like, okay, the squirrels, there are two types, the male squirrels and the female squirrels.
Yes.
Right? Like, the icon that I come up against, I guess, is, like, when it, like, you know, affects humans and the way they want to live their lives and the way that they feel their bodies ought to function. And when you get to, like, you know, really fucked up stuff like what we do to intersex children. Yeah. So, yeah. And, like, that's I feel like that's the danger of, like, you know, overly reducing all things to, like, you know, the scientific categories, the scientific terminology categories that are better useful to help us understand the natural world to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Which is that, like, we always need to, like, bear in mind that, like, hey, that there are consequences to relying on those too much and seeing those as way too set in stone in every possible context. And there are lots of, like, important human contexts where that don't make sense.
Yes.
Stop rubbing your sunburn. It's only going to make it worse.
It actually feels really good.
Okay, then do what works.
I have another question.
Yes.
Shoot.
Because, of course, this comes off as a heavily academic discussion. How?
Oh, what kind of discussion? Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Heavily academic discussion.
I mean, hello, have you met Chris?
Yeah, you did bring an academic onto your show.
Yeah, with that
Former
being said,
academic.
with that being said, how would you bring this concept to? How would you explain this to, let's say, someone who's not an academic?
I don't know. I don't interact with those. No.
Well, you're talking to two of them right now.
Yeah, right.
So apparently he would do it just the way that he's doing it.
Yeah, this is why I don't interact with the public on a general basis. No, I mean, it would totally depend on the context. Because this is the kind of thing that would, doesn't come up in everyday conversation, right?
Unless you're me.
Well, yeah, but you're already kind of predisposed to agree with me, so you're
true.
easy to talk to. Yeah, I don't know. Mostly I would just say, this is another case in which don't tell other people what their deal is a pretty good, general rule to go by. So, hey, if someone is, telling you about, how they particularly... what their chosen gender identity is and how they identify, maybe listen to them because that matters to them. And likewise, if people express their gender identity in whatever physical ways that they deem appropriate for themselves, hey, maybe you don't be a dick about that. That's a pretty good start, I guess. I don't know. But otherwise, it depends on the context in which this comes up, right?
That seems to be, don't be a dick seems to be a recurring theme for our show.
I mean, it's pretty good advice.
I think we say that at least once in every show.
Well, there you go. I'm super happy to have stumbled into that.
Yes.
Yeah, but, yeah, I don't know. That's the thing is, you don't... This is both the kind of thing that you don't run into in terms of explicit conversations with people at the bar very often, but
you're going to the wrong bars and talking to the wrong people.
That is false, and you know it. But also this is the kind of thing that you see, you Esme were talking about it, you see fragments and results of this kind of thinking around you literally all the time,
yes.
right? This goes down to gendered bathrooms, right?
Yes.
Which having separate men's and women's prisons and nothing in between, right? These are all societal divisions that come fucking blue and pink hats for little tiny babies, right? Yes. This is all stuff that we practice as a society because it's generally accepted that there is an inherent, a natural, and cleanly distinguished biological distinction between men and women.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's where you kind of need to look for examples of this to think more clearly, think through more about hey, maybe those, maybe having separate men's and women's bathrooms doesn't make sense, given that category itself is kind of deeply traumatic in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
oh my God.
That sounds like some talk that's going to take down society.
Well, I mean, ideally, the society as we know it anyway. But, that's the whole point. That's how you change things.
Yes.
Like some kind of living room leftist. I'm on to you.
What? Oh no, I played my cards and revealed my intentions.
What?
Yeah.
You've activated my trap card. All right, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
You should be
You're
sorry.
not sorry.
I'm not, but I feel like I should apologize.
I don't know. I've rambled quite a bit. Who has something else to say, or someone say something? Yeah.
Oh. And this is weirdly like a thing that people get really, really heated about. Like I've seen many, many discussions, so many discussions. I've participated in so many very heated discussions recently on like Facebook about people and their need, like people, mostly strangers on Facebook, let's be real, and their like need to be able to slot somebody into one of these boxes, right? Despite whoever, like this person's gender identity, right? People still get really, really uncomfortable, like with not being able to fit somebody into a box.
People get literally violent.
Literally, actually violent. In fact, that's a large part of like the source of like violence against trans women is like, no, you're actually a man. You're just like you're quote unquote a woman, right? But that's like not actually true, right? These things are fuck these people, man,
yeah.
Or don't.
I would say let's not.
Let's not.
See, and here's the thing, and this is going to get into some other things that we're probably going to have Chris back on for. When you challenge things that are considered concrete, once those things become non-concrete, the entire foundation upon which they have their paradigm begins to shift and crack. If there isn't,
now we're talking.
If there isn't male and female from birth, which is and that's designed biologically, and that's it, and that's the only two. If that isn't the case, then they may not actually. Everything they think about themselves could be wrong. Everything they think about themselves could be wrong, and everything they think about everyone else could be wrong, and so on and so forth.
I mean, and it probably is.
Yeah. And then the next thing you know, society is completely and totally wrong, and nothing makes sense anymore. And I think
most people would far prefer to look at the shadows on the wall of the cave.
Yep.
Oh, what?
That's a philosophy reference.
What?
I get that
one. That's philosophy 101. That's like the first day.
Yeah. I've never taken your philosophy class, and I get that reference.
You shouldn't take my philosophy class. Also, no longer available. Yeah.
Anymore.
Womp. Oh well. But yeah, no. I mean, that's exactly it, right? Like, you know, these are paradigmatic concepts that order like our social lives, or at least are purportedly supposed to order our social lives, right? They're, you know.
I mean, they kind of do, though. Like, even if you don't,
there's no escaping it, right?
You literally. I made this point to somebody the other day who was trying to challenge, like, why does California need to institute a non-binary gender identity, like, distinction on state IDs? And I'm like, because you literally cannot exist in society without placing yourself into a box.
Yes.
Right? It would be great if you didn't go everywhere and be asked to mark what you are.
Right.
Except we do.
Yeah.
We are. And so we should provide more than two options.
Right. And, you know, like the social world that we inhabit is like beholden to the entire history of human, like, you know, like it's like civil society, right? Which arguably has its basis on, like, you know, conceptions of men and women and the family and how that, like, all, like, fucking, you know, originates.
Yes.
So, yeah, like, this is stuff that's pervasive and, like, deeply ingrained in our practices and our social lives. And even, like, shaking that foundation a little bit, like Keem was saying, like, people lose their shit. You know what people need to be fucking better at is getting their foundations shaken, because most of their foundations are shit.
Yes.
So they got to deal with that.
Yes. And oh boy, the conservative Christians are always the worst about it.
Right. Well, I mean,
because their distinction between men and women comes from God.
Well, right. I was going to say,
like men, it's like God, and then the clergy, and then men, and then women.
In the beginning, God created man and woman, and He saw to it that it was good.
Say what?
Said in the beginning, God created man and woman, and He saw to it that it was good.
Yes.
Well, no, in the beginning, woman come from Adam's rib or something?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, now we're waiting to, like, areas I do not have the authority.
With that being said, that's That's the two origin stories of in Genesis. The first one just says God created man and woman, and it was good. The second one came Adam's rib. So
Yeah. Well, no, you know the story of Lilith, right?
Oh yeah, the whole Lilith thing. Yeah.
Lilith, right?
Yep. There you go.
Right. God created Adam and Lilith.
Yeah.
And then Lilith got too big for her britches,
Yep.
and so she was cast out.
Yep.
And then God created a proper subservient woman to serve Adam like a good woman should.
Man, that really fucked up everything from
It
that on out.
really did.
Yeah.
And then everything was terrible forever after that.
But on the break, we briefly had the thing that is Lilith Fair. That is a result of that.
Yes, that's true.
We've got that going for us.
Yeah.
Is that something? I have no idea.
also
so.
interesting
Sort of, maybe.
note.
Yeah.
Interesting to gender and sex. The reason Lilith was cast out, once again, too big for her britches, because Lilith wanted to be, quote unquote, like man.
Yeah.
And look what happens when you do that. God gets pissed. Well, now we just end up in, let's make fun of like Christian theology, which I am totally down with.
This is the point of the podcast.
Okay, let's do it. Maybe someone out of right.
Right?
Come up with a more creative story, at least.
I know, right?
You know who had it all? The Norse.
Oh shit! Yeah, they were on top of their mythology.
And I mean, those
Dude,
guys,
have you heard about the thing that's happening with the Norse mythology, though? Where it's being super appropriated by the
shit!
white
Yeah, but the
supremacists?
fucking alt-right assholes.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yep.
I mean,
It's a bummer.
Right?
you can pretty much blame the Nazis for that one.
I do. I blame the Nazis for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, they're good
Nazis
people to blame.
What?
I said they're good people to blame. It's almost like they're natural bad guys because they're shitty fucking people.
They're yeah, it's pretty great.
Lord,
I mean, put it this way: they are the reason. One of the main reasons why Raiders of the Lost Ark is an amazing movie, because you get to cheer on like Nazis getting the snot beaten out of them.
Yes.
Right? Just like, come on, that's perfect.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
and we're gonna have a discussion on like Nazis and alt-right people on another podcast because I've had some issues come up this week.
Yeah. Can I be on that one?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Can we talk about punching Nazis?
Yes.
Good.
Absolutely.
Are we all in favor of it? Is that
Yes.
even something that we need to discuss?
I mean,
Yes.
you know me and my qualms about punching anybody, but
Nazis, come on.
I know if you did it, Nazis too.
Great. That's what we're talking
Here's
about.
the thing, though.
Yeah.
This is my stance, and I've articulated this to Keem also.
Yes.
This is my stance. I am not going to go punch any Nazis, probably, but I fully support anybody who wants to go punch some Nazis. Anybody's way,
Yeah.
they're going to go punch some Nazis,
Fair.
but I am not going to go punch any Nazis.
Fair.
Like that's
I
my
am
line.
in fact I punch a Nazi. As a matter of fact, I have a list of people I will punch. Nazis, very top of the list. Klan members,
Good.
right under. Homophobes.
Good deal.
You're going to punch a lot of people. Hate to break it to you.
Hoteps.
Let's go fight the Hoteps. This is also a recurring theme.
Yeah,
Let's fight some Hotep.
I am going to have a Hotep battling podcast. Like Hoteps, me and you, we're going down. Like
Like a
I will
Royal
not-
Rumble kind of situation.
it's Kismet. It's what it is, and the Hoteps will get it. I will knock them back to Egypt. I swear.
Good plan.
Yeah.
And also
Right.
under the Hotep, I will punch fancy pants liberals who tell me it's not okay to punch Nazis.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll back you up.
I've got some fancy white people in Seattle that I'm about ready to punch after reading news stories looking for something to do on things. There's a large number of so apparently several schools in Seattle got together and had a Black Lives Matter day where all the teachers showed up wearing Black Lives Matter shirts.
Badass.
And many white liberal rich parents wrote angry emails to the school district.
What a surprise!
I know.
I am shocked that white liberal, white liberal Seattle, fucking tech entrepreneur assholes can't even put their money where their stupid mouths are.
I know, right? Yeah. Like so many emails. Like, my child felt very excluded by this act, and I have issues with my child being told that police sometimes lie and do bad things, and all this stuff. And I'm just like, let's go punch these people.
Because it's okay. It's okay to sit at home and say how bad things are and how you wish you're different and wish things were. But as soon as they start popping that bubble, man, you start. And I'm big and I'm black and I will pop the shit out of your white bubble.
Correct. That's my experience with you.
That all checks out.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we got a little off subject there.
It did. I was told that would happen.
Yes.
Yeah. I will do nothing to rein this content in.
Welcome.
I just think this should be a wide, many different viewpoints, and see where it goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is an old school podcast. It's kind of a round table. You sit down, you start on a topic, and see where you end up.
See where you end up.
And that's the second time you use the term old school podcast.
No, because we rebooted the podcast and we've been using a different format. And this that we're doing here is very much like they used to do at the beginning.
It's a blast from the past, everyone.
Yes, it really is.
And if you hate this format, then, I mean, it'll probably not happen.
Then tune in next week.
Yeah, tune in next week. It'll be better. I won't be here, so.
We'll be back to the new normal.
Probably don't like me.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we should circle back around to the point at some point.
Okay. Do we have a point?
We were talking about sex and gender.
Sure.
I always talk about sex and gender. That's like one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the point for me is like, yeah, don't, accept categories that are just handed to you. Even if they are seem like crucial to like how you live your life. Yeah. That's what I got.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, I want to dig in a little bit to non-binary as like a category, though.
Yeah,
because I've been arguing with a lot of people about it lately, and also I think that many of our listeners will be familiar with this, but some of them might not be. But yeah, so like, holy crap, there's so many things that are non-binary, though, right? Like non-binary is approached two different ways. Like there are some people that claim it as a positive, like I am non-binary, but there's a lot of other people who interpret it, I think, kind of like, I think also kind of validly, right? As an umbrella term of like anything that falls out, like any gender identity that you might claim that is outside of the binary of male and female. Right. So like you can positively identify as binary, or I feel like that also could be a term to describe like gender queer, very like different kinds of gender, like fluid, agender,
right?
Things like that.
Well, I guess that comes around to the question of like what is the term, like what context is the term functioning in? My response to everything is like, what's the context? Because like what context matters.
Right.
So
and
like,
also this is a constantly evolving sort of like conversation. Like new words are being created and new ways of using words are being created like every single day. It seems like.
Well, right, and like in the context of like, hey, this is like now we're like finally acknowledging this is like a legal category.
Yeah.
Like it seems like the purpose behind it is supposed to be like, hey, this is a catch-all umbrella term for anyone who identify outside of male or female.
Yes.
Right. That having been said, we need to be like realistic about like, hey, what do like political categories do?
Yes.
And what they are not is like exact proxies to our identities.
Yeah.
Right? Because like politics is like the juridical order is just garbage at that.
Mm-hmm.
So like I guess porque no los dos, right? Like
exactly,
it seems like that term serves different functions in different contexts.
Yes.
And in a legal context is still like completely insufficient.
Yeah.
Right? It's nice to see some progress that like, hey, some added here, but like not scratching the surface in terms of like being inclusive to the vast range of identities.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, great, thanks. You gave me like male, female, and other like box.
Right.
Like, literally, like that's all I get is like I get to be the other.
Right.
Yeah. But hey, it's a start.
But it is actually a really good start, I think.
Yeah.
Like, as long as we don't stop there. Although, like, Facebook, have you looked at Facebook lately? Apparently, Facebook has something like 50 different things that you can do.
Really?
Of course, you have to still, like... Huh?
Is that really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have you... So, I did this. I did this recently. Because... reasons. On my podcast page on Esme. And changed it. And... like, you can choose between 3 different sets of pronouns, right? Like, you can choose, like, he, him, or she, her, or they, them. And then if you choose they, them, you have to distinguish, like, what your gender identity is. They don't just let you, like, choose neutral pronouns and then, like, let it be, like, non-specified gender. Like, they don't let you do that, which is stupid. But there's, like, a whole freaking list of, like, things that you can choose. It's a whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. I actually came across a while ago.
What's your thing?
So I don't totally remember exactly what the point was, and I need to look it up again. Where there was one of the video, like, journalist people for Everyday Feminism, or hosts throughout Everyday Feminism, like, that's not their only outlet. Went on and posted a video about whether or not it's possible to identify as, like, non-binary woman.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Give me some more background here.
Right. No, I mean, just, like, instead of just being like having non-binary as a gender identity, like, to specifically identify as, like, a non-binary woman or, like, a non-binary man, right? Like, to still incorporate that, that binary word into your gender identity with the distinction of being non-binary. Like,
is this like purely like a hypothetical? Like, is this possible?
No,
or is
like,
this,
that's
like,
their gender identity.
People who identify as
yeah, no, like this video blogger, like, themselves identifies as a non-binary woman.
Okay.
And I'm like,
then sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I was just wondering if you had, like thoughts.
Not strongly, right?
Thoughts.
Like, well, like linguistically, right? Those contradictory terms, but like, hey, let's be cool with contradictions, and then that's not like a yeah.
No, I'm never going to bring that up to you.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's not like I was going to be like, oh, kids these days and their identity.
I know, right? I know.
Yeah.
Damn millennials.
Sorry.
Hello.
But yeah, so it is that there's, like, if we have a point, do we have a point?
We have no point. This is utterly pointless. But let's keep going.
I don't think it's pointless. I mean,
well, I mean, like, in a fairly cosmic sense, right? Like,
oh my
everything
God,
is fairly pointless.
Oh my God, you're calling into question everything that I am and do and believe. And
the third time in this short
podcast.
This is fun.
Anyway, so do we have a point? What's our point?
I don't know. I think the ultimate point is that, like, biological sex is not as hard a category as
it's a garbage term. It's the idea of biological is a garbage idea, and if you are really like super tied to that idea, don't be, because it's bad.
Yes.
There. Okay, that's my point. Yeah.
I also feel like as we're talking through this, I sort of am coming around to this thought that, like as gender identity becomes more and more, like, as various kinds of gender identity more mainstream and more accepted and more used as ways of classifying people, I sort of feel like quote unquote, like, biological sex is going to start to be much less relied upon as a category that's used. I mean,
that would be nice and everything, but I don't know, but yes and no, right? Because, like, it's such a, like, it's a term that has such, like, staying power that even, like, you know, like, highly progressive attempts to, like, you know, like, a lot of highly progressive, like, attempts to, you know, like, provide, like, protections for trans people, right?
Yeah.
Still rely on the idea of, like, oh, well, you know, they're biologically male, but they identify as female or vice versa or something like that.
Oh my God, can we talk about how infuriating it is that no mainstream news media source appears to be able to talk about people's experiences without saying they were born as? No, that's not what happened.
Well,
actually,
anyone who's been following the controversy in academic philosophy recently, that I'm just gonna
that's you. But
no one has. No, well, I'm not going to get into this because it's really buried in the weeds and kind of a big old mess. Mm-hmm. But anyway, if anyone's been following, but the point is, even academics are fucking that one up.
It is not that if you have to talk about somebody's life experience before they transition to whatever they're whatever they are, right? If you have to talk about somebody, use assigned X at birth. Or what have you, right? It's not that hard to use that instead of was born as.
Right.
No. Right?
Yes.
It's not that hard. It's not that hard. It's really not. And it functions the same way in what you are trying to say.
Do your homework, people.
Right?
Learn some shit.
You don't say this boy. You see it a lot, especially when you're talking about kids, and it's the worst, right?
Yes.
When you're talking about Gavin or Ash Whitaker, it is the ones that I saw it most frequently. Or I've read an article from the New York Times about the amazing strides that doctors have made in treating trans kids. And I'm that's amazing, right? Thank you for this article about all of these amazing all this amazing progress in the medical community about what are the best practices when dealing with trans kids. And yet they started off, this girl was born as a boy. No, right? Not actually.
Yeah.
Not actually.
Yep. And ultimately also that serves that information serves no phrasing it in those terms gives you no additional information that couldn't have just been covered by this girl is trans.
Here's the thing, though, is that I have talked to a lot of people who don't, mostly online because I don't actually communicate with people like this in real life very often, who are still confused things like trans man, right? You say this person is a trans man, and they say, oh, so they were a man and now they're a woman. No, actually. They are.
Yeah, but that's their problem. They can get over it.
But I can still see where in a traditional media source they would want to make sure that everybody knew what they were talking about.
No, they're not obligated to do that, right? No.
Okay.
No, the fucking New York Times should be better than that.
Yeah.
Right? They're not fucking USA Today. The goal isn't that every asshole who's staying in a hotel can look at the colorful pictures on the front and figure out what's going on in the world.
Ooh, there's a lot of judgment coming off of you right now.
That's correct, yes. Yeah, well, I will.
That goes back to the question I asked earlier. How do we get these concepts to get these ideas to non-academics? Because, people get confused really super easy.
Yeah, but they should be fine with that. Be confused and then learn things. That's not the worst thing in the world.
Humans,
people treat being confused about stuff as if I'm so mad about it, and it's no, just.
But see, humans don't do confusion as oh, I'm confused. Let me learn something. Confusion is scary.
Right, and
unknown.
Deal with that. I don't know. Get over it. You're grown up. Not you specifically, those in the world who are cantankerous about there's fucking so many letters now that I have to know, LGBTQAI. What
there's 3 A's.
Yeah, people who complain about that, I have no patience for it.
I will say I don't complain about it, but I would very much like one each different person, especially when I've been observing things during Pride Month, it seems like every other person adds another letter, and I'm trying to figure out what that next letter is about. And I don't dislike it, of course. I'm not gonna complain about it, but man, I need a guide.
I mean, there's so much. We have so much access to information, and I mean, I guess
Google it.
Well, I mean, no, there is something to be
did.
there for like an unbelievable access to information and information. We have an access to an information network that spans the entire fucking globe from this little box that we keep in our pockets, right? But on the other hand, that comes with the like overload of potential access to all kinds of different information.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have like a good solid idea of like, hey, who's right? Added to the fact that like no one's got it right, like there's, there is going to be like indeterminacy because we're dealing with stuff that is like inherently indeterminate.
Yes.
So, yeah, but at least people are obligated to at least try.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you run into so many people who are like, if you care so much about it, you should care enough to educate me about it. And that's infuriating.
Yes.
But
like
they're like, I don't want to take the time to Google it, so you should tell
cram
me
it down
it.
my throat while I resist
while I argue
every
and
single
exactly.
point.
But
now for every asshole who feels the same way. Yeah.
See, I have a question about that too, because like this podcast is very much dedicated to outreach, and so
well, I fucking that right up. So good job.
Yeah,
Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for fucking it all up. But
no problem.
Are we not in a way, as those who are trying to change things, are we not in a way obligated to like have a moral obligation to inform?
Here's the thing though, is that no person is obligated to educate anybody else above and beyond their capacity to do so, right? So the problem isn't that like these people want to be educated. The problem is like if every single white person Keem, like were to come up to you and be like, so tell me about Black Lives Matter and why I should care, right? You would very, very quickly exceed your capacity to deal with these people.
Well, especially given if their attitude was like, you are obligated to explain
you are obligated to explain
because you are
this
the black
to you,
person that I know.
Because you're the black person that I know, and I'm going to argue with you at every point, right? So I feel like I do agree with you. Like, I feel like morally, like we are all sort of obligated to put out, like to engage in these conversations, but there's many, many factors at play that will like affect each individual person's capacity to engage in these conversations, and like at what level and what kind of conversations people are are capable of engaging in, and how many of these conversations in any given week people are capable of engaging in. And so I don't think that any one person has an obligation to engage in any particular act of education. Right? Like, I don't think that it's fair to expect this particular like queer identified person to educate you if you go ask them about it, right? Like, they are totally within their rights to say, you know what, I can't do this right now, like Google it or find somebody else or something, or read this article and then get back next week, right? When I have less on my plate and can have this conversation, right? Like no person is obligated to engage in any interaction, because that's like ignoring like their autonomy and their own like health and their capacity for dealing with it, right? Every person can choose for themselves how much they're capable of engaging in that. Which is another argument that I've been in on Facebook lately.
You're getting in a lot of Facebook arguments.
I get in a lot of Facebook arguments. I get fired up about stuff.
Should just not be on Facebook.
I should.
It's a bad place.
It is a bad place, and my mental health is suffering. It's true, but anyway. So does that make sense?
Yes. No. Yes.
That was my spiel.
No. See, what I did was, that's called a bait. To keep the conversation rolling.
Oh, haha, that was very sneaky, and I didn't even catch it.
Yep. It's like I've done this before.
What?
Is there anything else you all would like to add?
No, I feel pretty sufficiently.
I feel like we've yelled sufficiently about this topic.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, me too. Good job, us.
Yay!
If that is it for the topic segment, which it was definitely a topic segment to listen to.
Yes. In fact, we hope people will listen to it. Please listen to it.
Please.
I say after the fact. Like, if you are listening to this right now, you will already listen to the topic segment.
Woo!
But
topic segment.
With that being said, and without a break this time, because once again, we're without artists this week. Like I said, very old school podcast. I'm
going to use this opportunity to say, if you are in a band or are a musician or know somebody who's in a band or is a musician who would like to be featured on our show, please contact us, because it is getting really difficult to keep finding new people every week. I'm reaching the limits of like how many people I can send messages to in a week and receive no responses back. So if you want to promote your music, please let us know, and we will get you on the show. We will do interviews. We will play your music. We'll talk about your upcoming shows. Do it. We want to share you with the world, or with our listeners.
We do.
As many listeners as we can.
In most cases, she's in Memphis. Here in North Mississippi, I am finding absolutely no one.
So get in touch with us,
please. I don't care if you're not from these two states. It doesn't matter as long as you have music and are not like terrible.
We want. Ouch.
No, you know what I'm
we want to share you.
I mean, not Ted Nugent is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like, we don't want Ted Nugent. If Ted Nugent is listening, fuck you.
Oh, no kidding.
That would be bizarre.
Wouldn't that be
so bizarre if Ted Nugent was listening to this and had listened to this far into it, too.
Yeah, right. That would be very strange.
Actually, somebody send this to Ted Nugent. Please.
I'll do it.
Fuck you,
Ted
Nugent.
Anyone's got to connect, yeah.
Yeah. Right? Like, let's get this going. In any case, so with that, let's transition into the sex segment. Yay, my sex segment, which I realized about halfway through recording our topic segment that I had not actually picked what I was going to talk about this week. So now I picked one, which is my latest thing that I've been rambling to people about. I don't think that I've rambled to either of you about it this week, but I've rambled to other people about it. So in the wake of my rant last week about like various kinds of barrier protection and how they're all amazing, I got thinking about like, how do you communicate your desire to use these with people? And yet again, I'm coming back to something that was discussed probably on the Dildorks podcast with Bex, who I keep referencing, and Kate Sloan, who's amazing. I keep referencing these people because I listen to their stuff all the time. Which is, so this concept that they talked about on an episode of their podcast a while back, which is having an elevator speech. Or like, how do you communicate your safe sex boundaries to people?
Ooh, I hate that term so much. But
it's
a good concept.
Tell me about why you hate it.
Oh, it's just like, it's so like fucking like business oriented, like, you have 2 minutes to impress me, kid. Like,
that's true. That's true. But to have,
idea.
And that's what I'm saying, right? Like, I use elevator speech just because that's what they called it. But to have a very quick, so many people have so much like shame and embarrassment when it comes to talking about sex, particularly when it comes to talking about having safer sex, right? Like, people are embarrassed to ask for a condom. People are embarrassed to talk about this or that or whatever. And I feel like having a quick like spiel as to what your boundaries are and like what you do with them, like that communicates all of the information that your partner needs to have, and does so in a way that is not like overly drawn out and shows that you're not uncomfortable talking about it, right, is really kind of an important thing to have.
Yes. I mean, I'm with you on that.
Okay. So this is going to be kind of a short one, unlike last week's where I rambled on for like 45 minutes about all the different kinds of like of whatever, right? So ideally, like, so the point of this is to be able to communicate to a potential partner like what your what your status is with regards to any sort of communicable diseases, like how long it's been since you've been tested, like so that communicates to this potential partner like what their risk is here with being exposed to any of these things, and then communicates like the relevant information about like birth control options and like barrier protection, right? And does so very quickly and in a way that is not like doesn't provide like undue embarrassment for anybody, which is something that a lot of people struggle with. I have found, right, like to the point where a lot of people have difficulty even bringing it up beforehand. Like they're like, oh yeah, I probably should have mentioned this thing, and I'm like, yeah, you should have mentioned this thing.
Yeah, maybe throw that in at the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe do that. And I have historically not been super great at this, and this is something that I'm getting better at, right? Where like, and having a quick speech prepared where I can say, yeah, so like it's I'm positive for herpes 1, but I don't have any outbreaks ever. Like it's been X many months since the last time I was tested. These are the kinds of protection that I use. I'm on this kind of birth control, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And then that opens up, and then you can say, and how about you, right? Like, what are your boundaries? And that opens up that conversation in a way that is not embarrassing for anybody. And I really like that, to have like a quick speech.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Let's just call it like a quick set of bullet points that you can go over.
Yeah. Like dot, 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 and now I've communicated everything relevant, and let's get to fucking already.
Right.
Or like
we didn't use any profanity.
What you've been calling it with me is the
Sorry, what?
I said what you've been calling me with the state of the relationship address. Remember you said that?
No, that's
time?
a different thing, though.
Well, I mean, but similar concept though.
Cards printed up with all the relevant information.
Right, like a business card.
Yeah. You know.
Right, like here's my relevant information. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Or like a PowerPoint slide.
Let's not go crazy here. Also, because like, when are you gonna have like your like phone or laptop like ready? Just have some cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have a card printed up.
Yep.
The only problem with that is that like the number of months since the last time you were tested is constantly changing.
That's a good point. It's gonna be right. Well, you could just have a fill in the
blank. Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Like it has been X months.
Carry a pen.
It has been blank months since the last time I was tested for these things.
Yeah, I am negative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but in any case, that's my quick spiel. That's all I've got. Right. And I feel like one of the reasons that these conversations aren't had is because people are uncomfortable talking about it and are uncomfortable bringing it up, and that's and because we paint a lot of these things as stuff that's like shameful or embarrassing to talk about, right? Like
yes.
You're talking about like really intimate parts of your body and really like all these things, but
before you go rub those parts,
before you go rub those
against someone else,
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna get up close and personal with these parts of my body, right? Like you should at least let me like not be uncomfortable hearing me talk about them. But I'm taking it on myself, you know, at such time as I feel like I'm going to, I don't know, seek out another sexual partner, which I'm not really in a position to right now, but that's okay. But like, take it up. I think everyone listening to this, take it upon yourselves to like prepare this speech, like say it to the mirror. I don't care. Like get used to saying it and saying it in a way that doesn't make you sound like you're uncomfortable talking about things that are important for your health and that are important for your pleasure, right? Like have even like, I've decided that I'm going to include in my thing, like I am much more likely to orgasm if I have a vibrator. So here's a vibrator that I have. Like, how comfortable are you with me using this while we have sex, right? Because if you want to see me come tonight, that's probably how it's going to be. Like, just say it, right? Yeah. Like, I have this thing. But to talk about things that are important for you to know, or like for your partner to know about you in this encounter, and to do it without being embarrassed to ask for things that you need or to ask for things that you want in that encounter. And the best way to do that is for everyone to take responsibility for that, right? Like take responsibility for being able to communicate your own positions and your own needs in a way that's not like, that doesn't make it seem like you're ashamed to talk about these things or you're embarrassed to talk about these things.
I had to work on that actually a lot myself. like it was less on the whole like bill of health thing, because I will tell you like pretty much everything regarding that.
Yeah.
But and this is something I'm pretty open about now. It takes, and this is, I guess, I don't know if it's like people would think it's not common for guys, but I don't orgasm very easily.
Yeah.
And like, especially on a first sexual encounter with someone, it's important to let them know that, hey, okay, this might not happen. It's nothing to do with you. Like, it's not that you're bad or anything, or like you're inadequate or anything like that.
Yeah.
It just may not happen. Like, because I have been in a situation where it didn't happen with someone and they were really, really upset.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten to tell them that, hey, it takes a minute. You know, like,
yeah,
first 2-3 times it may not occur.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, get comfortable communicating what you need when having liaisons. Your weekly Monday rendezvous, if you will.
If you must. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is right, like people have a lot of expectations with regards to sex. And if you know that somebody might have an expectation about this encounter that might not be met, like it's totally and would be upset by that not being met. Like it's totally fair to say, hey, just a heads up. I do that all the time. Right? I do that all the time. I'm like, heads up, like I might not come, and that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it. It just means that like I'm particular, right? You have to. It takes a couple of tries to get the combination right before that happens, and that's fine.
The hilarious thing for you and I, because if Edna hasn't figured this one out yet, but we both kind of went in saying that on the first time, just like, hey. And it happened either way, yep. One way or another.
Yep.
And it was still incredible. It was fun. Awesome.
It was fun. Anyway, so that's my rant. That's my rant this week.
Solid rant. Like,
yes.
That's kind of rant right there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That was good. That was a good rant.
Thank you. Yeah.
Would you say
it wasn't anything like that?
Would you say that was the? Would you say that was the climax of your segment?
Ha! That was good.
You would say that.
That was good. You can't see it, but I'm high-fiving you right now. You should high-five me back.
I can feel it. I can feel the high five.
Yep, the vibrations went right through the computer.
Oh my god, I hate you both so much, except I love you both.
That is a difficult situation.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, I love you, but I hate your puns.
Well,
this is an ongoing thing. My goal is to get her to break up with me from puns alone.
You're well on the way.
I would be very impressed by that. I would definitely want to see this go down.
Why do I keep finding people who like puns?
Great.
I'm sorry. Maybe it's your punishment.
In any case, I'm going to drop the puns thing.
In any case, we are at the end of our show. It's a pretty short show this time. We've been running over on our shows the past couple weeks, but it's a pretty short one this time because, like I said, we're all over the place.
Yep. Unpredictable.
This is the Chaos Show.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we will be back next week
with a normal show.
With a normal show with our topic. Topic next week we're going to be discussing the history of Pride.
Yes. Why does Pride happen in June, guys? We're gonna talk about it.
It has nothing to do with my joke earlier. So,
that is true.
Yeah, we're gonna come at you fast and furious with some history lessons. Maybe even talk about a couple other issues that relates to Pride before we end the Pride Month.
Yep.
And with that being said, this won't be the last time we talk about things having to do with the LGBTQ community. It's what
That is true.
it is. Like, it's what we do. It's part of our show. It's part of us. So,
Yep.
just because we are ending Pride Month next week, doesn't mean we're done with it. Oh, we're gonna come at you hard and fast later on. Wait, phrasing.
Are we still doing phrasing?
We better stop before we get some Archer copyright problems. But except we'll be back next week with the history of Pride. Hopefully some new news stories, and I will have one good one next week.
Yes.
We won't get the same story. And like I said, everything will be back to normal. Hopefully we'll have an artist for next week.
Oh, I bet we will. I've got a thing.
Oh, she's got a thing.
I've got a thing waiting. I've got a group.
It's gonna be good.
Here's hoping.
But we would like to give a very special thanks to Chris.
Thank
from
you,
the
Chris.
Living Room Leftist.
You are welcome, guys, for putting up with me in a general sense as well as in a specific context.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have any resources this week to give out, which is also rare. But like I said, we're all over the place.
Yeah.
So if we come up with anything, we'll let you know.
I bet Chris has something for us.
I'll put together a reading list, sure.
Yeah. For those of you who are interested in diving into this topic, from an academic point.
Yeah, we will.
There will be things.
Yeah.
We may not put those links in the description. We'll probably do that on a separate post.
Yeah. In any case, it'll be available.
If you want to learn more, we'll be giving you some required reading.
Yep.
But if this is all we have for this episode,
That's
as
all.
always, this has been Keem and Esmeralda Di Apollo.
You did it again.
Yes, I did. Haha.
I'm gonna stop letting you introduce
I
me.
thought it was Diablo.
Say goodbye to the fans.
Bye.
And Chris.
What up? And bye.
We are out.